Hi folks, and I'm live with Hayley in a secret underground bunker to review not Homicide Live on the Street. I did that yesterday with another Texan. This is Big Brother, an episode of Yes Minister, and now I've got to get back to the thing. Right, here we go. And so I'm going to now show you the thing, and you will see the thing. The word substitute when one's vocabulary fails one. Here we go. Right, so. What to me? The thing, yes.
Well, one vocabulary fails one.
Yes. I'm being condescending to myself. Right then. And so I can now see that, and now I have to go back to the other program in order to move. So this episode, written in a broadcasted about 1981, pretty relevant to today, isn't it, Hayley? About let's set up a central database with information on everyone, and then there's all concerns. Well, who's going to have access to this database? Can the and that actually happens, and somebody brings that up early on, and so we've got the. I think that's a bit cheeky about his nose. I don't think he's got that much of a hooter. And then Nigel Hawthorne, Hayley, not the favourite of this character.
With a passion.
Yeah. Derek Folds, let me just Big Brother. Ironically enough, that was the name of that was that first episode of Only Fools and Horses was called Big Brother, and John Sullivan, I think at one point wanted to call Only Fools and Horses Big Brother. Right.
I think it's good they didn't though. I think people might have gotten the wrong idea.
Yeah, that's what they thought. They said, "Hey, we've got this James Orwell thing coming up soon because we've got 1984 coming up soon." So,
good idea.
Right, there we go. Look at that, 1980s, 1981 auto cue. That's a teleprompter.
I love how they have the blinds on it, so the interview, like the one who's being interviewed, can't see.
No, it's not that. It's because of all the bright lights.
Okay. Well, this is a dead one.
But yes, it may have had that benefit as well.
Go ahead.
That's good thinking, though, Hayley. That's right, because the other person could read the cue questions.
Yeah, well, during the intro, he's like, "Oh, so you mind telling me what the questions are going to be, or what this is going to be about?" Yeah.
I think the bit that they caught that was realistic was the fact that they're all chummy afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And like the sort of nature, then on camera they're sort of more antagonistic. It depends what kind of politician they are, it's whether they're just like playing the game or not.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then I think I remember you being like amused by his reaction shots to like being caught out. And then he gives the trained response. So at this point, even though he gave like Sir Humphrey's answer, and people were complaining, "Oh, you're well trained," it enabled him to get out of the situation with the sort of like the canned politician's non-answer response about because what he brings up here is, if you have a central database, all this information, what's to stop a civil servant from gaining access to their neighbours' records and finding out all the dirt on them? What are the measures for who gets to look at this information? And now we could say something similar with, what is the situation with DNA? What about when you go to the doctor? If you have, so for instance, I think last year I had a blood test, and I'm wondering, did they take that blood sample away and put it on some sort of DNA register?
Right. Yeah.
Also, not that I'm planning on committing any crimes, but I was never asked for my permission.
articles talking about how when you buy into these ancestry websites, they send you like a packet and you take a swab into your tongue or something that a lot of that does go on, and they submit it in for that exact purpose.
Yeah, and maybe they've got. And this
However, I can't confirm.
Yeah.
I can't confirm whether that's true, but
that might be. And that's known as a reporting requirement. Whereas, and they may not even be allowed to tell you that they do that.
Right.
Because the government would love to have a huge national genetics database. And to
not just that. Look at the new iPhone, the fingerprint recognizer. Now they're wanting to scan your eye or your face. I mean, seriously, people think, oh, what wonderful technology. But I mean, have all this information on record for every single person. I mean, I mean, not that they don't already have people's fingerprints. Due to just scary. And
people think all this would only happen but like they're using this in China right now, like these records on people, and they will like follow people around. There's this app called WhatsApp, and it's not WhatsApp. Sorry, WhatsApp, not that. It's WeGo or something in China, or WeGo. There's an app where it has all this information, and people use it to pay for lots of different things, like to buy a cinema ticket. It's like a combined Facebook, and it does like 10 other different services in one app, but they all report the information to the Chinese Communist Party, and so they know exactly.
So they want going, what they're spending their money on, what they're spending their time doing.
Yeah, what they're messaging, certain topics being banned, certain keywords being banned for discussion. And folks, if people want to find out more about this,
we don't have to worry about it, right? Because they would never do that. They would never do anything.
No, I said they're already doing stuff like that. Like this happened with the Patriot Act, the Unpatriot Act. Peter Schiff got a little bit annoyed in his latest podcast, folks. He actually said that he loves America, but he hates the American government because they murdered my father. Now, he was in his 80s, but technically, I suppose they did murder his father by the crappy care they gave him in prison. So if you want to check that out, folks, Erwin Schiff died in prison, blind, because he wasn't given proper medical care. But anyhow, so then, back to going through these slides, because we only have a certain amount of time, but it's relevant issues to the day. So yes, folks, the website that I suggest, ChinaUncensored.com. That's the website. And they have a YouTube channel as well, but it goes up on their website first, and that's where you can find out about this stuff. Very good, and it's funny as well, China Uncensored. The INTJs will like it just because it's cynical and it's got quite sarcastic.
It's ignorant, but I have to wonder why. I mean, it must just be for experimental purposes to see how much information this app can generate, because how can they truly be worried about what someone in their own population could be doing?
Oh! Well, we could start a whole different podcast series on
Haley and Ben
let's
get back to
yes, let's get back to it. But yes, but yeah, it is about the government keeping, because, and what enables governments to do this, the war on terror. We need it to keep people safe. If you didn't have
the underlying, I mean, not just the bullshit excuse, but the underlying, I mean, is it just to see, hey, we can do this, we can obtain all this information, and therefore just
you need a boogeyman. You need an excuse in order to people to allow it, because the SJs especially.
I know the whole point of this.
Yeah.
I mean, to gather information on the citizens of your country. I mean, in China's case, I'm saying, because they're really concerned about,
holding
citizens malicious towards them.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm ignorant and I'm
yeah, it's like they just want the Chinese Communist Party to be the only party Now the ESTJers in China will think, well, no worries, I'll just join the Communist Party and work my way up. You see, that's how the SJs can be smart. That's how the ESTJs, they'll go, oh, I'll just join the Communist Party and work my way up through the Communist Party.
Well, that's some patience.
Yeah. Whereas, you know, that's so so ESTJs know what they're doing when it comes to power, because there's no point fighting the system.
Mm.
And that's why there've been quite a few ESTJ presidents. Anyhow, so getting back on track. So we go through this comedy stuff. Now, I might actually clicked on. I was clicked on you when you were talking, but now I'll go back to this. Now we see this. So Jim's being interviewed. They think they know 1980s control room. Might have actually used the real one. Old school TV. I don't need to say that. People know that. I'm sorry. There might be some really young people watching that might not know. And you're probably thinking, hey, Ben, I'm still really young.
Well, we had something similar to that when I was younger. It was a miniature one, almost exactly like that.
That's Leicestershire on the map. Right, that dark red there. That rouge blot on the map is probably where I live. Right, and that's only why I took that grab. And you can see here with the cameras, like, you've got a frame and it's got this weird green edge on it. You see that there? That's the kind, and then you've got this kind of ready there. And so you can sort of use this to work out, oh, this was recorded in the 70s and 80s because from the types of cameras they used. Oh, and this was that. What was the line here, Haley? What was the line? What did he say that made her react like that? He said he couldn't.
Oh, I don't even remember. Oh, wait. He said, oh, it's or something. It's my wife's wedding anniversary.
Yes. That's like a great line. That is a great line. It's yours too. But that is so much truth to that. The men the world over would find that funny. It's like that is probably like how they see it. It's my wife's anniversary. Oh dear. Oh yes, and she brings up the point. Oh yeah, this gesture here is like a legal barrister gesture. A barrister, not as in a barista, but like a lawyer that works in a court is called a barrister in England. And maybe that gesture was actually maybe on a TV show of a character. And where she went, I rest my case, and then she did that sort of odd gesture with her shoulder, with her finger and thumb. And then she was saying, hey, when you were the head of like this magazine, Reform magazine, so probably like a little bit libertarian-ish magazine, and that he was like this dynamic person that would like, you know, chivvy people along and stuff. And it's like, now, why aren't you the same? Lighting's pretty good here. They've not overlit it. I mean, in the past, many programs made in the UK and in the United States in the 70s and 80s were overlit because they didn't think the cameras were good enough, because it would be like too gritty when it's not. It's just like with these webcams. Like webcams are pretty grainy. Unless you get like you got a better one than me. You paid a lot extra, and so yours isn't as grainy as mine. Right. So let's go. Oh yes, this is where he talks to the guy who sort of like had his position in government from the opposition party. Now, it's never said that they're the Labour Party and they're the Conservative Party, but it's pretty obvious that Jim is the Conservative Party and this guy will be the Labour Party, because the way that Jim talks, And it's also like the accents that they use. It's because he's always talking about, he wants to cut government, reform government. Well, that's at least what the Conservatives say they want to do. They never actually do it, but that's what they campaign on. It's like George Bush. Then George Bush gets into power, and then he spends loads of money, and then George Bush gives businesses across America the Americans with Disabilities Act. Great. All right. All right, and then we got all these. Oh yeah, I just did this to show people that maybe they don't do this in the United States ever, where they just like these old school red cases. Proper. There's your homework. There's your homework, there, Minister. That's the only bit, like a bit of his home life. And again, good lighting because it is meant to be dark. Yeah, waking him up in the middle of the night. Well, as you can see. Reactions. I can't remember what he was reacting to, but I just thought, it's a funny reaction shot, so I'll put it in. Oh, yes, this is stuff about where he learns the trick. Oh, you have to do it because it's been announced. And so then he thinks, Jim gets the idea, I'll just announce it, and then you have to do it. So it's like, he's learning, he's using his intelligence. And this is like the first time you see Jim sort of get one up on Sir Humphrey. And so you see him grow into the job. Because I never actually done. I remember watching a documentary with on Yes Minister, and they actually talked to some real life politicians, and they said that this is exactly what it was like when they became a minister. That it was like going up against the machine, and like just the whole bureaucracy. Because in many cases, the ministers don't know what they're doing in terms of they're not an expert in their field of the thing that they're implementing. Because usually they're political appointments. Like, for instance, is whatever the president is in the United States, they'll pick someone to be an ambassador, and it's usually just a mate, somebody who campaigned for them. Like there was a I think owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers endorsed Obama in 2008, and you get to be ambassador to Ireland. So without any actual, it's a lot of political favors. Although it's like, now, although he was qualified because he was Attorney General in Alabama, maybe, Jim Sessions, he endorsed Trump early on, and then Trump nominated him as Attorney General. Now, what people don't know about Sessions is he actually prosecuted a man who was a member of the KKK, and he put him on death row. Right. This is where Jim announces it. Oh, and he actually does that nice thing of actually saying, the civil service have been very good and we are now rolling it out. And so he gives them he butters them all up, and then and he's like initially happy. Now, probably what this actor would have done is, if he'd have known this was a close-up, then he wouldn't have had such a big facial expression on his face. It would have been more subtle. But because it was a longer shot, he's probably thinking, hang on a minute, I can do a bigger facial expression so people can see it at home. Because your proper actors will know that. They'll know, okay, how far, there's going to be a difference. If this is going to be a really big, juicy close-up, then I need to do my best acting, my best subtle acting. And whereas maybe when it's like a master shot like this, more stage-like kind of acting. That's where they announce it. And the original facepalm.
The guy in the center. I love his reaction, looking over at that guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
and there I would have been.
He gets smarter as well, and then they start putting stuff in about, well, actually, that comes from the Greek, this and that, and he starts doing all this stuff about Greek and Latin that goes over my head. But it's like because he learned philosophy, but he learned philosophy at a time when, in order to learn philosophy, first of all, you had to learn Greek in order to learn philosophy. And Jim learned economics in Big Brother. And then, oh yes, and this is the bit where it says, where did you get that information from? My lips are sealed, because he said it previously about, because his lips are sealed because he got it from a previous government as well. And then these are, right, so a little test for Haley. Who does Paul Eddington play?
Who does Paul Eddington what?
Who does Paul Eddington play?
I have no idea.
Okay, that's Jim.
I don't know names, that's a bad test. You know.
Okay, ITJ preference. Right, okay, this is the guy that plays Jim Hacker, the minister. Who's this guy? He's the guy that plays...
Yeah, I don't like. That's why I remember his name.
And he played the king in The Madness of King George. Derek Folds plays that third guy who was stood up.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. That might have been the guy right at the beginning. I don't know who they are. Diana.
I'm guessing that's
maybe his wife.
the only female.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only. Now, what they did is when they brought it back, they actually had a hot woman in it, a hot, intelligent woman, played by Zoe Telford. It was like the political advisor to the minister. Right. To make a program with not actually that many people. And these days, I get very cynical about the fact that they employ more people. And I'm thinking, because, you know, you can make an independent movie on a very small crew. And so I don't like how they can, I'm thinking they're wasting money on like employing people to hold a clipboard.
Right, yeah.
You can make an independent movie, and like, and a lot of big Hollywood stars, if they really like the script, they'll do an independent movie and they'll do their own makeup without a makeup person, but they know enough to be able to do their own makeup. And like they do like the big Hollywood movies for the money, and they'll do like the indie movies because, you know, for the art of it and to get some cachet, or maybe for an Oscar, something like that. Depends how good they are. And they probably enjoy it more as well.
Oh,
and they probably enjoy it more as well, because it's like more acting to do and less sitting around waiting for special effects. So, for instance, I don't necessarily agree with his politics, but here's an example of somebody who would go in between, who would flip between big films and little films, and that would be the Grey Devil himself. What's his name? Clooney, George Clooney.
okay.
He would do like Coen Brothers films, and then also like big movies as well. Okay. So then, Haley, now I've jogged your memory. What did you think of it?
This is my favorite episode for this. Forgot the name of the whole effing thing. I'm so bad at the name. I mean, it's horrible. But yeah, and the reason being is because I have a strong dislike for that one character, and I'm so glad just to see him Yeah, it was great.
Now, do you have a dislike for him? Partly because it's like you sort of like what is come into your unconscious is like he is like the body incarnate, the incarnation of all of the bureaucracy that stopped you from opening the gym in Texas, something like that. Right, like,
No, I mean, I see your point, and I think that's funny, but he seems like such a deceiver.
yeah.
And I find it really pisses me off. And oh man, I just can't imagine having to work with someone like that. I would probably either lose my job or one of us would end up leaving.
Yeah, so he's what is known as oilinagynous. Oilinagynous. Oily. Oily.
Big word.
Yes, oily. He's a bit slimy, I suppose.
A bit.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
But I actually quite like him. Because I at least he's written so well that you can understand where he's coming from and the logic of his point of view. That it's based in procedure and a lot of the times he makes points that are true. Because from his point of view, it's like you have these ministers come in and they don't know what they're doing, and we've got to try and stop them from doing what they're doing or they'll ruin the country. A little bit more resistance sometimes would be a good thing. I mean, like the American system was set up to stop change or to make it as hard as possible for change to be implemented, because they didn't want like some popular thing to like sweep the country and then to be. So that is why the Senate has 6-year terms and only a third of the Senate comes up for election every 2 years. So that everything wouldn't be swept in a popular craze.
Mm-hmm.
That there would be there were these like checks and balances and things. And I recently heard a podcast on Karl Popper, and it was like the purpose of good government is to try to have a government which is organized so that somebody can do the least amount of damage, or so that you could remove somebody who is bad from it. And so it's sort of like going to like a practical question. And so then it's like, well, you design your system of government to have checks and balances in it. So you don't have somebody come into power who's... So you have like these various mechanisms. Right. I remember what you gave it at the time, but what did you give it now? And then I'll tell the audience what you gave it at the time. Pardon?
I don't remember, but based on how I feel now, I'd say I'd give it an 8.
Yeah, that was the same, folks. She's consistent. Yeah, she gave it an 8 at the time. That's very high for an INTJ. That's not very high. Right. So yeah. So yeah.
What do you give it?
What do I give it? I give it. I'll give it that too. Yeah, I'll give it 8 too.
Okay. Well, due to the fact that I don't think I've ever things for the other episodes, I don't know where to put that. Is 8 good for Ben, or is 8?
Yeah, I think other times you've been like, yeah, it's tricky. With yeah, I'll give that one about an 8. Yeah.
Right.
Because for me to give someone a 10, it has to be absolutely perfect.
Okay.
The only I mean, there was a little bit of acting from Paul Editon, where he there's one false note he hit as an actor, like when him doing Upset, and he was saying, "Oh, I don't know what to do," and it was like he didn't quite hit that note realistically. But in terms of his comedy performance, he was very good. But I suppose that's about it. And yeah, so example, there is this app in China bit more about this. I think it's called WeGo or Weibo, something like that. And it is something like, it's a combined Facebook, and you can use it to pay for your cinema tickets and order meals. And it's like the most popular app in China. And because it aggregates like these 10 different apps into one, and it is a really useful app, but they report it to the Chinese government. And also, Chinese government has forced Apple to hand over information as well. Or because they could just say to Apple, okay, we won't let you sell your iPhones in China then. And Apple, they just gave in. And
yeah.
But yeah, so I think one of the differences between the UK and the United States is before 9/11, they could say, oh, extra security because of the IRA. They didn't have a problem with the IRA in the United States. But then, so after 9/11, but or sometimes they would say it like, oh, we need these extra powers to look after these white militias in the South, and then because of Waco and stuff like that. But then after 9/11 comes on, they'll push through all these things like the anti-money laundering law, which is basically requires, and Peter Schiff talked about this, where it's like he has to monitor all of the financial transactions of his clients. Right, and he said he's an unpaid IRS agent, and he has to run all these complicated computer algorithms through the financial activities of his clients. And he says he can't even tip off his clients that he's doing it or that he's found anything. Oh, I can see your non-verbals.
A fan. Not at all. That really sucks.
Yeah. Right, so yes, that is Big Brother, folks. And so now the United States and China and pretty much most world governments have the technology to actually do what the government in 1981 wanted to do. And he even mentioned, it amused me a little bit, where he mentioned the computer revolution in 1981. And the ability, and like I said, even that at the time, whenever you say, folks, if you're planning on doing some crime, don't buy anything with a credit card, it will all be traced. Because that happened in a homicide episode. So this couple that were killing people off, they paid for the drinks with a credit card. No, that's all traced. Don't pay for your drinks with your credit card when you're out on a killing spree. And then you can trace it. All these clubs where these people died, these same people were at the clubs.
Oh man. I mean, I'm not an expert at this. Obviously, I would never want to hurt people anyway. But I mean, come on. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Don't they think about that? I mean, seriously, if they're going
INTJ mastermind, are they? I mean, yeah, but in that episode, I mean, Jeff and I talked about this and about how because Jeff has listened to the audiobook of Homicide. A Life on the Street, the original book by David Simon. He would said that most of the time the criminals are dumb and they made these mistakes. And in that particular case, there were a couple of SP criminals who weren't thinking ahead. They're not the INTJ masterminds. They're not Lex Luthor, who certainly I think is INTJ. Oh yeah, people should watch that fantastic performance by whoever that actor was. I've forgotten his name. Gene Hackman playing an INTJ mastermind in Superman. Very good film. Right then, so we can leave it at that. We've gone 5 minutes past Haley's time. I feel honoured. 5 minutes extra from an INTJ. Right, so it's bye-bye from me.
Bye from me.